Oh, well, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Tramp Scotty, and we're at the Mid-Ohio Vintage Motorcycle Races. We've been here about the last 3 days or so. On the last film, I did a little filming yesterday at the campgrounds and some of the other camps. And although there's some very nice camps here, we were at some guy's place last night and had they were barbecuing. Remember, there's some very nice camps. Most of these guys have the advantage that it's a motorcycle race. Most of them came in cars, trucks, or RVs. There are those who rode in. There are some there's a lot of nice camps and nice equipment, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now is camping. And although a lot of the guys that I've known, all the guys that I've known that spend a lot of time outside, staying out, from what I've seen is they all use different methods. There's no one right way, and I've learned a little bit from a lot of different guys and kind of put it together what works for me. And so what we're going to do right now is take a look at my camp, and I'm going to talk. Me and Michelle, traveling with Michelle right now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's set up the way it is, and why the things that are in there are used, and how it is, and keeping in mind that when I'm going home to a camp, it's not a weekend thing; it's my everyday home. So it's kind of a little more important to me because I'm kind of a homebody, and I only have what you can carry on a motorcycle. So the first thing we did was, rather than stay out in the sunshine, lately the heat is here, the weather has oscillated between, yesterday it was 101 degrees in the afternoon, and then, people have been roasting out here, boy. And then in the afternoon, it started raining, it rained hard, and it rained all night long. So we've had a little bit of heat and rain and weather, not really any wind. But the first thing that we did when we came in to set up this camp was, rather than put out in the field, what we did was we pushed ourselves back into the woods. And if you look along here, you can see this tree line right here that we pushed ourselves into. Okay? See it? That's good. Okay, come on. Let me show you. So what we decided to do was push back into these trees. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first thing we did, the sound ain't very good, so she's going to try to keep that little camera close to me. The first thing we did was came in and looked through these woods, and there's barely enough room to get to. We found a spot in there that's clear enough to use, and came through these woods, and we had to move a lot of branches and fallen debris, just enough room to get the bikes in. And so this is where we are. That's what we did. Come back in here. Michelle's little dog. We just bring him on up to the camp. Michelle's little dog, Tulane here. Can you see me? Get one up, not the dog. Anyway, so the first thing we did was we came out here and found this spot. And the reason we put it in here is a couple of reasons. One is when you get wind wreaks havoc on camps, man. It blows them to pieces. I hate being camped in the wind. It drives me batshit crazy. And so what we did was we pulled into these trees to knock the wind down. Other years that she's been here, I've never been to this show before, but Michelle has. And other years that she's been here, there's been a lot of wind. And so these trees will knock the wind down. No matter what you get, there'll never be a lot of wind in here. The other reason is we've had a lot of heat and we want the shade. So what I'm doing is I'm using the land to give us coverage from the elements. You see what I'm saying? Okay, if you look at the camp, it's a simple little camp, obviously. But one of the first things you can see is that I've strung this big industrial tarp up above it. Now this is a real heavy tarp. It's 10 feet by 16 feet. And so it's big, like it covers the whole camp. And I'll tell you what, man, anybody who's ever been stuffed, if you're stuffed in a tent and you're in there for half a day, maybe it rains half a day or all day and all night or something, it's like being trapped in a coffin, man. You can't open the door, water's leaking in the corners, it just sucks. And so what I learned this was from the boys in Oregon, man, because I'd go to their rallies and I'd watch what they do, and they come in and set up their tents, and then they'd string tarps right into the trees right above them. And I watched that and I thought, now take a lesson, Scotty, because these guys are rain experts, you know what I mean, up in Oregon. They know about rain. And so I started doing that, and I started with small tarps, but I ended up going to a big one. And the advantage is like it rained last night, but we had the door open. We could get to the motorcycles. The bikes are underneath there dry. You can get out and take a leak. You know, you're not confined into there. You have this whole area that's dry. Now I had to lean it. I had to move this side down during the rain so that it would run the water off over here and keep it out of our tent. And we stayed fine in the big rainstorm and was dry all the way around. And one of the things about putting up this particular tarp that I'm using is an industrial thickness tarp, and you can get them at Costco. They're like cheap, man. And one of the things about putting a tarp up is one of the important things is, especially if you're going to have wind like at Sturgis, always gets heat, wind, and rain. If you ever go there, that's what it gets, man. But one of the important things is that you string it to a lot of little eyelet holes that'll keep it from ripping in the wind, and you tie it to everything you can. This one's secured in 6 places, it looks like, or 7 places to hold it out. That's one of the tricks to it. And another thing that's real convenient about carrying a big tarp is when I get caught in a heavy rainstorm and I can't find a bridge, I'll pull over and throw the tarp over the bike and sit underneath it and read a book. And other times, and it'll handle heavy hail, believe it or not. And other times I will just put it over the bike. I'll wake up and sleep on the ground. It starts raining. I'll pull the tarp over the bike, stake it down, stretch it out like a lean-to. It covers all the way to the ground on this side and just leaves that side open. And I've withstood some really heavy rainstorms just under there hanging out. So like a tent to me is as valuable, or a tarp to me is as valuable as a tent, man. And so that's what we have for a roof. You always got to have a ground cover. And I have one of these tarps cut in half, then folded in half to make a heavy ground cover. We put an extra large porch in here because there's a lot of leaves, and Michelle's working. She wants to come home and be able to sit on her porch here. She likes to prepare food. You know, I eat canned beans and stuff, but she actually makes food, real food. So we have quite a bit of ground. You always need a tarp, something underneath your tent. Okay, if you move in, I've kind of gotten over the expensive tent thing. I used them for years. And I got tired of that, and now I'm just using a $30 tent. 40, 50 bucks is okay with me. They seem to work as good. The one thing I did do was I took the aluminum poles out of the expensive tent, and I extended them and made them fit, because now I'm not on a weekend venture when I come home. This is my everyday home, so maybe I put a little more effort into it than you need to if you're just going on a trip, you know. So I have these real strong poles in it which give it strength, and the cheap tent seems to be working as well as anything. What I carry for bedding, I want to talk about that a minute. The first thing, one of the things that was my experience early on is that I tried air mattresses in the first year and I abandoned those really quickly, and there's a couple of inherent problems with them. One is, man, they're a headache to set up. They're a headache to put up and take down, having to blow them up every day. And if you're going camping and you're setting it up, and then you're going to be there for a while, it's not a big deal. But in our world, we tend to stay in places that are not necessarily legal or not necessarily campgrounds, and so you can't leave your equipment there in the day because somebody will wander through and take it sooner or later. So you have to pack it up every morning and put it down every night, and you know what it is? It's just a routine. After a while it becomes a routine, like getting up in the morning, getting ready to go to work. I mean, it's just, it's not a big deal. So the first thing about air mattresses is that they're a headache to put up and take down, man. But the main problems that they have is, over the long term, those bastards never hold air. They always leak, and you end up waking up on the ground. But I think probably the worst parent problem that I had with them is when it's cold, man, you freeze from the bottom up. They offer nothing for insulation. And like I carry down sleeping bags, and if I'm sleeping on my down, I have it squished because I'm laying on it, and I freeze from the bottom up. So what I learned a long time ago to use, and what I've been using for a long time, is just foam rubber. This is a piece I bought from a foam rubber place, cost $2.50. They give me an end cut. And that's what works for me, although, see, foam rubber gives you heavy insulation from the ground. It's also fairly soft, and it's what they use in snow clothes, man. It's a heavy insulator, so that's a problem with cold sleeping. It's freezing from the ground up. Michelle, on the other hand, uses a Thermarest, which she's had to patch a couple times so far, but it's pretty good, and it fills up easy, and it offers insulation. But its advantage is that it rolls down really small. Okay, then what I carry for bedding personally is over in that big bag over there. I've got 2 down sleeping bags zipped together, man, because I've never been able to handle just sleeping in a sleeping bag, man. I feel like a queer's gerbil, you know what I'm saying? I mean, because they're just too tight. And so I have 2 down sleeping bags, 0 degree in there, zipped together for when it's cold, and then stuffed into that military bag. And then I carry a down quilt with a comforter with a cover on it, you know, because you can wash the cover. And the other thing that you got is, to tell you what, man, when it's 100 degrees out, you don't want to sleep under no down sleeping bag or no quilt or no down quilt. So what I tend to do is take the cover off when it's real hot. It's cooled down right now, but when it's real hot, you take the cover off and use it like a sheet. You see what I'm saying? All right. What else do I got to talk about here? For me, I put a jacket in one of these stuff bags and use it for a pillow, so it works as a double thing. That's what I've been using for years, man. And the other advantage to that is, too, if you stuff a nice jacket in there and then you trap it on your bike, nobody knows it's a nice jacket because it's stuffed in a stuff bag. So I use that I call it civilian camo. You're camouflaging this stuff so the average thief doesn't want to go there. Okay, things like this. I carry these on my bike. I carry stuff stuffed in them. I got one here that's empty, I think. And you probably can't see it in here, but these military, we call them waterproof laundry bags, but they're rubber lined on the inside, man, and they cost $5 at the Army Surplus store. Not all Army Surplus stores carry them, but when I run across them, I get them. And what I tend to do is put a plastic bag inside of them, just for double insurance. And once you do that, you can float them down a creek with your stuff in it, because we all know and it'll stay dry. Because we all know it's a drag when you get caught in the rain and you finally get to camp, you put your camp up, your damn camp's wet. I want to go to bed in a nice dry home. I want a nice comfortable home. Another advantage that we have to using the tarp here today is that because it's been so hot, I have the top taken off the tent so that all the screen, you probably can't see it, is open, because even though it was raining, it's still been pretty warm, man. And so we were able to leave it all open. And as you can see, if you shove the camera around here, this roof gives us room to have the motorcycles under here, which keeps everything dry. And this is pretty much my home. I don't know what else to say about it. Of course, there's a lot of different methods that a lot of different guys use. These are just some of mine. A lot of these are stuff that I've learned from other guys. I've watched other guys and seen what they do and brought it all to this. And there's probably more stuff I'm forgetting. But for basics, that's a basic camp, how I use it for an everyday life. And that's it.